Guys, this is a video that is probably my most requested in recent weeks. How to fine-tune a model. Fine-tune models have been absolutely the next big thing in AI, particularly for fiction authors. And the reason for that is because a fine-tune model is simply the best way to create a model that writes in your style. Fine-tune models are exceptional for style, and when done well, the output that they give you is almost indistinguishable from an actual human or from your own style. And it can actually be a little uncanny sometimes. I'm going to teach you how to do it, even though it is a very difficult thing to do. I'll also introduce you to a free tool that will help you along that path. And we'll actually go through the process of taking that fine-tuned model, uploading it to OpenAI, and actually getting to use it. So first things first, this is a new free tool, absolutely free tool. The developer of Novelcrafter built this tool. It is completely free. You don't have to be a subscriber to Novelcrafter to use it. But if you look at it, like, it might be a little overwhelming, like you have no idea what to do with this thing. And that's what I'm going to walk you through today. You'll notice there are three areas right here, three fields here, and you're going to need to fill all three of these out multiple times to create the data set that you want. And actually, one of the cool things about this particular version of a fine-tuned model creator, basically, is the fact that you can upload a spreadsheet with your entire data set in there, and it will just automatically create the whole thing. And I find this to be a much more convenient way to do it. So to go any further, we're going to actually go through a spreadsheet and see what that looks like. So all you need really is a spreadsheet. I'm using a Google Sheet here, just called Finetune Models, and you really just need 3 columns. You don't need a header to each column, you just need 3 columns. In the first column, well, all 3 of these columns are going to correspond with these here. We have the system message, the user message, and the assistant message. So in this one, we'll put the system message, in this one the user message, and in this one the assistant message. And what this is basically we are creating a data set that shows the AI what an ideal chat response should look like. So if I say write 500 words in the style of Jason Hamilton based on this summary, I want the tool to be able to output 500 words that are in my style based on that summary. Okay, so in order to fine-tune this model, we have to give it multiple examples. And you'll notice here at the bottom, I have multiple types of models that I've listed here. There are many more you could do. The idea with models, with fine-tuned models, is that they need to be targeted at one specific task. You can't just do one style that you just dump all of your books in it and it can do anything that you want in your style. It just doesn't work that way. You have to specifically decide what type of task you want the AI to do, then give it multiple examples of an ideal chat that is doing that kind of task. And then from there, you're able to create your data set and create your model. So the first obvious one, and this one's a little bit easier to do, is called copy edit, or it's just what I'm calling it. Copy edit, rewrite, however you want to call it. But this is basically the kind of fine-tuned model you would want to have if you want to take AI text and rewrite it in your style, which is super useful, especially if you are using various models to create your prose. For instance, there are instances where you wouldn't use a fine-tuned model to actually write out the prose, but you want to take the prose that you were given and rewrite it in your style. That's the kind of situation we have here. And I've been using one of these models. In fact, it is free to those who join my membership. I'll have more to say on that in a little bit, but feel free to check that out. But this is what creating a data set for this particular type of tool would look like. First of all, there's another great blog post here, Novelcrafter, explaining a lot of this stuff, and even has a few sample prompts for you, which we're going to use right now. So a sample system prompt for a copy edit fine-tuned model would look something like this. It says, you are an expert copy editor. When given prose, return copy edited prose that stays within the style of, in this case, Jason Hamilton. Or I could put the nerdy novelist or a story hacker or what have you. And that's the system prompt. And this does not change. Every single part of your data set will have the same prompt. So you can just click and drag and make sure all of them have the same prompt. I'm going to also edit this so that it clips it, so we don't have to worry about this anymore. It's just all right here. The next thing, we're actually going to skip column B for now, because before we get that, we need to have column C. Now, column C is the ideal output that is in your style. So really, the answer of getting this is simple. You have to just take a snippet of your text and place it in column C. So let's go to one of my books, and let's just grab a paragraph. It could be any paragraph, and then stick it in here. So now this paragraph is part of the output. So this is what we want as the ideal example of what I want the output to look like. And in this case, we want it to be able to take AI written text and rewrite it in my style. So we're going to work backwards here and use the AI against itself a little bit. And I'm going to take this paragraph, come to ChatGPT, and here in ChatGPT, I can just paste that in there and say, rewrite this text in your style, something like that. And here we get typical AI written text, right? So the fairy queen observed the scene with a detached calm, her gaze capturing the light that spilled from the rift, sending a shimmer of gold and green across the forest. You know, you get the idea, right? And my version just says the fairy queen regarded it coolly, her eyes reflecting the light streaming out of the tear, casting a dancing golden green pattern across the trees surrounding the dark clearing. Much more just simple, to the point, etc. So what we can do is we can take this rewritten text, come to our spreadsheet here, and just stick it in here in the second column. So basically what we're doing is we take the system prompt here, which says, when given prose, return copy edited prose that stays within the style of Jason Hamilton. Then we give it this as the input text, saying this is the text that we want to rewrite. And then we give it the good text, my text. And that basically gives the AI an example of an ideal scenario, and it will learn from this about how my text differs from the AI's version of the text, and so forth. And so what we're going to be able to do with this is, what you're going to want is 50 to 100 examples of these. This is the not hardest part, but longest, most tedious part of creating a fine-tuned model, is that you do have to spend some time creating these data sets. But once you have 50 to 100 examples of this sort of thing, where you take a paragraph, let the ChatGPT rewrite it, and so forth, you'll be able to have this. Now, there are other things that we could do. For instance, the beats to prose. If we were to put a beat to prose here, what I would probably do, and I'm still working on this for myself, is I would come here into my book, grab roughly 500 words or so, take that 500 words, and then write a summary of it in my own words, right? Because I want to say, like, oh, what would the beat actually sound like here? And so if I'm going to work backwards again, take roughly 500 words of this prose. Let's just say that's what this is. Put that here in the third column, right? And from here, I would write the beat that would create this prose, okay? And so once again, working backwards. And then here in the system prompt, I would probably, I believe, yeah, they have a good option here in the blog post. You are the genre, author, and then you put your name. Each time I prompt you with a scene beat, write 250,000 characters. Or you could put, if you're consistently doing 500 words with your examples, you could put 500 words or 1,000 words or however many words that you're putting there based on the idea. Don't conclude the scene on your own. Follow the beat instructions closely. Don't end with foreshadowing. So that's just an example of a beat to prose prompt that you could do there. So you would put that here. You would put an example of a beat here, and then you would put the finished prose here. And from there, what you'll be able to do is basically you're giving it an example of what a good beat to prose looks like. And then you do that 50 to 100 times, once again, which, by the way, doesn't have to be 50 to 100 times. It can just be as low as 10, but the quality that you get is going to be much, much better the more you do. But over 100 examples from everyone I've talked to in my community who have been trying this nonstop over and over and over again, over 100 examples doesn't really result in a huge difference in quality. So I would say get at least 50 and work from there. So that would be a beat to prose fine-tune model, and you'd spend all the time fleshing that out. But one of the things that we have actually learned from doing this a lot of times, and I'm not just talking to myself, I'm talking to many of the good people in my community, is that if you take this text and just say summarize it to ChatGPT. So let's just take this text. We go to ChatGPT and say summarize this text in one paragraph. And we give it the paragraph, and then it gives us some AI written text here summarizing it. So this could be a way of doing it, a way of cutting down on the time it takes to actually write all these beats out. But actually what we have found is that doing this and using AI generated beats is not really effective. You're going to get much better results from actually doing your own beats and writing out your own beats in your own language, your own voice, and then putting them into your Finetune model here. So I thought maybe there's a way you could kill two birds with one stone, and you could, once you've got this data set, you could actually reverse it and create a prose to beats data set, which will actually make it easier to write those beats. So you can basically, you're training it to summarize your stuff in your style so that the output sounds like you, the actual beats that it generates sound like you, and that will save you time the next time you're creating a prose to, or a beats to prose model. Because honestly, like, these things take so long to generate, and if we're going to be doing more than one of them, which you might, I would probably create one for every series that I'm working on. It might be a nice way to have a shortcut to summarize it in your style so that it works a little bit better, if that makes sense. So that's something you could do. And thankfully, you can create the data set for that just after you've created your data set for a beats to prose model like this one. All you have to do is reverse it and say, here's the input text, and then the output text would be your beats. Okay. And that's all you'd have to do. It'd be very easy to just reverse that and get a different model for it. So that's something I haven't tried yet, but I think could be actually really useful. Another thing I'm trying, and I actually have the data set for this, is a outline to beats thing. And I haven't tried this yet, so I don't know how effective it will be, but this gives you an idea of a finished data set, or near finished, because I only have 43 examples here, but it's about what I had at the time. So the system prompt for this is, you are an expert plotter. When given prose, return an expanded list of story beats that stays within the style of Jason Hamilton. And then I give it, basically this is a little paragraph about what happens in the chapter. And from there, it gives me all of the story beats for that chapter. So really expanding the story beats. Because so far I have found that AI never gives me story beats that are good enough for me. And I'm still hesitant that they will, but at the very least, it's going to give me stuff that's more in my style, written in my style, and also probably more around the length that I want for my story beats. And so that might make it easier for me to edit the story beats to my configuration. But we're just going to have to find out here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to spin this off as its own spreadsheet, which I now have here. That was just so it just has one tab here. And then you come up here to File, and we're going to download this spreadsheet as an Excel file. And then from there, we're going to go into Novel Crafter's free tool, upload my outline to beats Finetune spreadsheet here. And then once that's uploaded here, you'll see here on the left-hand side, it shows you the data set, and each one of the data sets pulled in from the spreadsheet. So if we click on one, it shows us everything filled in here just like we want. We have the system message, we have the user message, we have the assistant message, and all of that is already set up for the entire spreadsheet. This is why I think doing it from a spreadsheet first is actually a better way of doing it than trying to do this one at a time. Because let's say I wanted to change something about any part of this data set and then try again, do another Finetune model, it just becomes easier to do so if I've got it here stored in the spreadsheet, so I can just quickly reference it again. So once this is all uploaded in here, you're going to download the JSON-L file, and it will download to your computer. And then after this, it's time to upload this Finetune model to OpenAI. And the way you do that is to go to this URL. It's platform.openai.com/Finetune. And if you don't have an API account with OpenAI, you are going to have to create one. Opening an API key allows you to work with OpenAI in the OpenAI playground, which you may have heard of. I haven't done too many videos of it, but this is basically a way for developers to use the AI tools in a little bit different ways. And it's a lot like ChatGPT, but actually you can do more with it in Playground than you can in ChatGPT. And so like this is where you would do that. But on the left-hand side here, you can also go to fine tuning. And then over here, you hit the button that says create. And from here, this is what we're going to do. We're going to select a base model. And the base model that is available right now for fine tuning is GPT 3.5 Turbo 1106. This is the one you want to select. I do have access to GPT-4, but that one's kind of still in beta, and you might not see it here. And also, as I understand it, GPT-4 models are a little bit more difficult to create and more expensive too. So from this one, you're going to want to select GPT 3.5 Turbo. And now we're going to drag the JSON file right here that we just downloaded from Novel Crafter's tool and select upload and select. It's going to upload the file. Under validation data, you don't have to put anything here. Just leave it at none and then hit create. And at this point, it's going to start the fine-tuning job. Now, this can take a little while. It's going to be, right now, it's validating the files. You'll see some graphs and things pop up. Don't really worry too much about any of that because it is all not really stuff that most people need to know. And then just wait for a little while until you are ready to actually start using your fine-tuned model in the OpenAI playground. So I'll catch you in a second. Okay, so the job successfully completed here. And all we have to do now, first of all, make note of the name that you have here, particularly this part, because this is the part that's going to be different. Unfortunately, OpenAI does not have a way of naming these models yourself. So you will need to keep track of them, especially if you're creating a lot of them. You'll need a spreadsheet or something to keep track of which is which. But this one, I know it starts with 8U6. So if we go into the playground and we want to add a system prompt here that is very similar to the system prompt that we put into the Finetune model. So we're going to just grab you're an expert plotter, yada, yada, yada. And when given prose, return an expanded list of story beats that stays within the style of Jason Hamilton. Then ideally, all I'll need to do is just enter in something here with a description of the scene, and it should be able to do the scene. Now here, you want to make sure you're selecting the correct model. So you have all your regular models here, and then below you have your list of fine-tunes. So you want to find the fine-tune that we just made. And then so far from everything I've been told, the temperature does better when it's down a little bit from like, it's usually by default at 1, so we want to bring it down to around 0.7. And the maximum length we'll want to expand just a little bit because it has the output is ideally a little bit longer. And so from here, let's go ahead and enter in a sample beat. So let's say, okay, Jason Hamilton is trying to come up with ideas for a YouTube video about fine-tuning models. He doesn't know what to do, and his wife comes in to help him brainstorm ideas. They spend some time going over things until their 3-year-old daughter comes in and starts running around like a crazy person, interrupting their brainstorming session. That's what we're going to go with because it's just what came to mind first. So as long as you have the model selected here and the system prompt selected here, this should work. Just hit submit here at the bottom, and boom. It's writing the beats out much like I would write them. This is definitely something the right format. So let's read a little bit of this. Brainstorming what Jason might do for a YouTube video. Jason is frustrated because he feels like he's already done a ton of videos on writing and he doesn't want to just rehash old stuff. He wants to come up with something new, something that will draw in a lot of people, but he's not sure what. This is actually not bad. Jason's wife suggests that maybe he can use his math knowledge to do a video about how to calculate the perfect size of a dragon for a book. All right, so it's gone off a little bit here, and it's talking about dragons and stuff, which is probably because the examples I gave it were all from my fantasy books, but that's okay. Probably I should have given it a fantasy beat before I did this, but let's bump ahead. Just as they are really getting into the brainstorming this video, their 3-year-old daughter comes running into the room and jumps onto Jason's lap, completely interrupting him. She's excited about something, but they can't tell what. She's also holding something in her hands, which they can't identify at first, but it soon becomes clear that it is Jason's lucky D20. again with the like fantasy thing. Okay, so this is not too bad. I'm going to be playing around with this a little bit more and seeing if it actually gives me something that I can use without a lot of heavy editing. But I'm actually really impressed with the promise of this particular outline to beat Finetune models. Soon I'm going to make another video that will basically show you how you can integrate Finetune models like this into Novel Crafter, the same program that created that awesome free tool, and which makes the whole process of using these Finetune models much easier because you don't have to come in here into Playground and mess with things there. So that'll be another video coming soon. I'll be sure to post it right here as soon as it's available. And in the meantime, have a great day.